That was pretty silly at the end. No Way Home all over again. But instead of Toby stopping Tom from killing the Green Goblin, now it's Shuri stopping herself from killing the new Green Goblin. There is a lot wrong with this film. I think overall it's more good than bad. I gave it a score of 7.75. Serviceable in most places, but definitely I think they made some really key bad decisions, and we can't ignore probably the mother of all bad decisions. So it seems like I'm down on Shuri. I actually did like Shuri a lot because in the first one she was just insanely annoying, and her jokes were just so terrible with the sneakers and things like that. I was just like, I don't want to hear any more from this character. And they didn't do that much in her other appearances. Really, she's just functional, super technological genius with Infinity War. And in Endgame, she just shoots stuff. It's not much there to work with, but I do think they did a really good job with the evolution of her character. But really, they kind of, not character assassination, but kind of just plateaued at the end and said, okay, she's just Vengeance Woman after her weirdo conference with Killmonger, which was a big highlight. And I like how understated it was. The Michael B. Jordan performance was very welcome. Thought it felt very naturalistic, and it was really good themes and a lot of great work with the colors, with white being used and the contrasting colors throughout the whole film. So there's a lot to love in terms of the visual style and production design. This is a lot better than the first one, where the CGI was just so out of control and almost nothing was real, and it just felt really flimsy after a while. Can only go so far with really good practical effects and some really great minor performances with Bilbo and Mabaku, and some of the other key players. I think they really stepped up. But after a while, even there, it got kind of thin. Like Mabaku referring to Namor over and over again as Fishman. It was like, okay, we've played that joke. Let's move on. Nope, we're going to go back to the Fishman. It's like, all right. Honestly, Bilbo really gave the best performance. I know that'll be kind of polarizing for some subscribers, but let me just say I'm a person of color. I do think Namor was very strong, but really, to be fair, we got a lot of great stuff with him, but I don't think he gave the best performance because, again, there's a lot of questions you're going to have after this, and I don't think they answered it, but they didn't answer it for the right reasons because if you want to know more about Namor, you're going to have to pay more. Pay another ticket, see another show. So it just felt frustrating that this narrative is being sacrificed for Disney Plus, for the Ironheart series, and for the inevitable trilogy ender and other considerations. So it just felt like, even despite having a massive running time, they are leaving a lot of threads, and we know what they're going to do. They're going to answer the threads, and another thing that you got to pay for that one too. So I do like this film. I do think it's a respectable artistic work, but it is heavily commercialized, and you just see it all throughout. There's a lot of product placement. There's a lot of lame jokes for the young kids. Obviously, the Ironheart character is not just for Disney Plus, but for the younger audience. Like, oh, here's another young, beautiful, intelligent black woman to look up to. So it just felt, at certain points, fairly cynical. But I think overall, I do think it was a respectful tribute to Chadwick Boseman. But the plot is fairly flimsy, and it really could have been done really just in an hour and a half. I think that we could have gotten enough with Namor's backstory and the tragedy of his upbringing and why there's a clash of interests, why he had to do what he had to do. But then other parts are elongated to get to the inevitable stupid third act in the massive battle. And I think the fight choreography overall was decent, but in some places it was really laughable and it made no sense. And the death of Angela Bassett, which should have been so critical and they should have been so precise, really made no sense. It's like, okay, Namor just throws all these grenades, I guess, and explosion, and she's dead, but Ironheart lives? Like, her plot armor here is insane. It's insane. They give her some vulnerability, but really it's like she's invincible, so there's no dramatic tension. And how in the world is it that Shuri is a world-class genius, Ironheart, world-class genius, but they couldn't escape from Namor just by themselves? No, they need more help. So it just felt way too contrived in too many places, and that really brought down the score. It seemed like they had a basic good script, but they didn't take the time and effort to make it more precise, or this is being tied into the different phases or fuses or whatever, and that really weakened the central core of the story. I want to give this a higher score because they really did do a much better job than the first Black Panther, which was just complete fascist, idiotic nonsense with just a black skin over it, but it just felt like warmed over Hitlerism. And the way they got away with it was to say, well, yeah, T'Challa's kind of like Hitler, but he's okay because he's kind of like handsome and he's good looking and he's actually a really nice guy underneath it all. But at least they kind of revealed a very nice kind of Star Wars subtext that, yeah, Wakanda is quote good, but it kind of got there because their kings were really brutal and ruthless and evil. Okay, that's a nice twist. And Killmonger has to be brought down because he's super Hitler. And that's the only reason that Wakanda Hitler good, but Killmonger Hitler bad, because he's really extreme Hitler. So that was pretty stupid. So they gave us a much more mature story, and I'm glad they didn't push the super Hitler line again with Namor, but they did make him more murderous and brutal than was necessary. Some of that is in the comics, so that's fine, but I do think there were just too many laughable sequences for this to be taken too seriously. But it was good enough, it was serious enough to recommend it. But it is kind of like a disappointment because you really were hoping they could go all the way with it, and they were so close. It is what it is, just some sloppy editing, needless, moronic action at certain points, and just a lot of lame jokes. And really, Ironheart really brought the score down. She really, really didn't contribute all that much. I'm sure the actress is fine. It wasn't terrible acting, but it was pretty worthless for a lot of it, and just did not add to the story. And that really hampered things because that's really just a whole hour we spent with her and the various threads with her. It could have been spent elsewhere and more wisely with other characters and other subplots, but there we are. So, an imperfect, disappointing film, but good enough to see. But you can definitely pick out where it needed to be a lot stronger to be a great film.